Hi all. Today we will gonna learn about Spring IOC. So it actually stands for Inversion of Control. Okay. So to understand IOC, maybe we need to understand a little bit about Spring Container. So Spring Container is kind of a core of Spring Framework. Okay. It actually does all of the things you could say, and it's also referred as application context sometimes technically. And if I talk about high level overview of what Spring Containers does, then the first would be like creating and managing the objects. So creating and managing the objects is also referred as IOC here, okay? And the second would be configure and assemble dependency. So it's also referred as dependency injection. And the third, we could say like managing the life cycle of the objects as well. Like it's also called as Spring Bean life cycle. So these are kind of high level of Spring Container, but we will gonna focus on Spring IOC here. Okay. So as I said, like Spring IOC mainly focused on creating and managing object. It also includes somehow managing the life cycle of objects as well. And if when I'm saying like creating and managing object means it's like a factory. Okay, it's like a object factory. It will give you object out of it. We would kind of relate this thing when we go through this session. Okay, and to understand this IOC, we can go through a requirement. We will like understand this thing with the help of an example. Okay, so it will be really clear for you. So our requirement is like we have to assign work. Like our client is saying that okay, we need an application through which we can assign work to different engineer in my organization. Okay, in their organization. And that application needs to be configurable means if they want to assign a work to software engineer, then that application needs to take a maybe input or kind of configuration where that client can configure that software engineer thing, and then it will give work for software engineer only, likewise for other engineers as well. So that's need to change the output according to the configuration. So if you have this kind of requirement, then you can go ahead with Spring. Okay, so for this requirement I will go ahead with creating a Java project. Okay, so I will keep this application name is assign work app. Okay, and everything is fine, Java 1.8, and I will click on finish. So it will create a simple Java project here. And now what I need, so actually I'm using here Spring framework, so I need some jars of Spring as well. So for that you need to go into one link, okay, to download all of the jars, Spring jars. So this is actually the link. I will give all these links into my blog, whose link will be there in the description. So you will get everything there, this link and whatever I'm teaching here in this session. So you have to only go through this link and you have to click on this file. Okay, Spring 5.3.9 -dist.zip, and you can download these versions according to your requirement. I'm using the latest one here. So you have to download this chip. So I have already downloaded it. I will go to my this file, and here I have already extracted it as well. So I need to double click on it. I will open this extracted folder, and then I will go to this libs folder here, and you need to copy all of the jars here. So I am like copying everything, control A and control C. Okay, I have copied everything, and I need to paste it into my this project. Okay, so for that what I will do, I will create a new folder here. Okay, so I have right click on this project, go to new, and then I will click on this folder. I will name it as lib. Okay, I will click on finish. Now I have this folder and I will click control V here. Okay, so I will get all of the jars inside my application. Okay, inside my this project. Now what I need to do, I also need to link these jars kind of into my build path of this application. So we need to do this actually so that our application can pick up those jars. Okay, so for that what you need to do, you need to right click on this project, and then you need to go to build path and click on configure build path. Okay, and now I need to add jars. Okay, you need to click on add jars, because now these jars are inside the project. Okay, if that is in some other location, you have to click on add external jars. So click on add jars, and I will select all of those jars here. Okay, so what I will do, I will select all of the jars. So I am just clicking shift and then clicking all of the jars here, and I will click OK. So it will now link all of the jars to my this project. Okay, I will click apply and close here. So right now I have imported all of the jars and linked it to my project. Now I will go ahead with the requirement. Okay, so now for that I'm gonna creating a first interface. Okay, so interface will be engineer. So interface is engineer, and the package will be com.programwin.ioc. Okay, so I've created an engineer because we would have different kind of engineers. So I want to create a kind of common method for them, and all of those engineers will implement this interface. Okay, so now what I will do, I will create a method. So public string, this abstract method here. So public string work. Okay, so this method will actually give a string which will be the work for that engineer. So now I have this interface. I will quickly create a class. Okay, so class will be like software engineer. Okay, and here I need to import that means I need to implement this engineer interface. So what I will do, I will click on add. I will search for that interface. Sorry, engineer. Okay, I will implement that interface as well. So now it's implemented. I only need to give the output. So it's a software engineer. What I will say, like maybe create a Java API for org. Okay, oh, that will be fine. Create a Java API for organization. This is kind of different engineer, and these are the work it will kind of assign, it will give as output, and I have one interface. Now what I will do, I will create a class. Okay, and there we have kind of my main app. Okay, so right now what we have done, we have created an interface and multiple engineers. So we have all of the engineer object here, and we have to assign different work to all of the engineers, so that we have given implementation like that. So now we have to actually understand like how this Spring container or this IOC work. Okay, so I will show you one example for that. Okay, I will show you one diagram. So right now I have this assign work application. Okay, and we have created all of this different engineer which are implementing a interface engineer. Okay, so what we actually do, we will create now a configuration file. As I have said that this application need to be configurable, so we need to create a configuration file, and we need to configure that engineer. That can be any one of them. Okay, so we need to configure that engineer. And what Spring container actually do, Spring container will create object of that engineer according to this configuration file. Okay, so now this is our application, so it will directly talk to the Spring container. Okay, and now Spring container will give the object of that engineer according to the configuration. Okay, so right now what we have done, we have this project, we have all of this engineer. Now we need a configuration file, and then we have to load those containers, and that will give us that object of engineer. Okay, so so for that, like we need a configuration file. So for configuration file, what I will do, I will right click on this source, I will go to new and the file. Okay, and in this file I will name is at application context. Okay, application context.xml, that will be an XML file. Now I'll click on finish, and we need to actually configure engineer here. So there will be some prerequisite code kind of these things, this XML and all. So you will get it in my blog, same there, and I will give all of those links into the description. So you will find all this piece of code, okay, whatever I'm copying here. So these are actually error prone, so it's better if you will copy the same. Okay, so you won't find any difficulty. So now if you go through this XML, so these are kind of boilerplate code, you can copy it anywhere, there is nothing much to understand here. The main thing is now we need to configure our application. Okay, we need to create configuration. So for that, what we need to do, we need to actually use some tags. So first tag will be this bean. Okay, so bean, then you need to give a ID. So ID is kind of alias which will get used in our application, okay, which will refer from our application. So you will get to know about it, okay, in a couple of minutes. So I will give this alias as engineer, and you also need to give name of a class. Okay, so like to which class it will refer. So here we need to give a fully qualified name. Okay, and fully qualified name of a class. Okay, an implementation class. That won't be an interface, that will be an implementation class like software engineer, electrical engineer, or civil engineer, anything. So what I will do, I will give a full qualified name, com.program win dot I will give maybe software engineer. Okay, so beware of any typo. Okay, otherwise you will lead to some errors. So I have written everything, com.program win. Sorry, I have left this IOC here. So com.programwin.ioc.software engineer. Okay, okay, someone has written here beans. Okay, so now we have defined our bean. So a bean has one ID kind of alias which is referred by our application, and a implementation class, okay, of which object we want in our application. So right now I want the work of software engineer, so I have given input as a software engineer class here. Okay, so it will give work for software engineer. Now we need to use this configuration. Okay, so until now where we are, we have this configuration file. Now we have to, now our application need to interact with this Spring container. Okay, Spring container. So for that, what we need to do, so we need to go to our this main app class, and here we will have our favorite method, that will main method. Okay, and here we need to use one application context class, kind of it will load that configuration file. Okay, so here we will have couple of steps, I will write it here. So first we have to load config file. Okay, config file, sorry, there are types. Okay, and the second step will be, we need to extract, okay, extract the engineer object. Okay, and the third will be maybe invoke that method, invoke the method you want. Okay, invoke the method. So these will be three simple steps. So load configuration file. Okay, so for that we need a class. Okay, so as we have this configuration file in XML file, so we need a class name, class path, XML application context. Okay, so class path, I will press control space and I got this name, class path XML application context. I will write context. I will give it a reference context equals to new, the same class path application context, and here I need to give the name of my application context.xml file. Okay, that configuration file. So configuration file name is application context.xml. okay, so right now we have loaded our configuration file, and then now this whole like a Spring container will give me the object, okay, according to the configuration file, this configuration file. So now what I will say, like I will say this container is Spring container to give me the bean. Okay, like we have assigned we have declared then there a bean ID. So what we will say here, that context.get bean. Bean will be simply kind of, you can say, objects here. Okay, so context.get bean, and we need to give that bean ID. Okay, so what was the bean ID? Engineer. So I will go here, I will paste engineer, and then I need to give a parent interface here as well. Okay, so parent interface will be kind of engineer dot class. Okay, so what we are saying here, like, okay, Spring container, give me the object of bean ID engineer, okay, which will be a type of engineer dot class. Okay, engineer is a parent interface. So why we are giving here engineer dot class? Because if that would be any of the engineer, then this parent interface would be able to hold it. Okay, so that's why we are giving this parent interface, so that if we are configuring any engineer, this reference can hold any of the child object. So now I am referencing it engineer, maybe eng equals to, so whatever object has been given by here, given by this Spring container, now my this reference eng will hold it. Okay, and now we have to simply call our method. So I will call the method eng dot, the method name is work. Okay, and let us execute it. Okay, so it's saying create a Java API for organization. Okay, so it's the same output we are getting, which we have given there in that class. Okay, and a small thing I missed, so we also need to close the context. Okay, close the context means this thing, so we need to close the context. So that was the last step. So what we have to simply do, like context dot close. It's kind of a good best practice. Okay, for this. So now we will execute and we will get that same output. Now, as I said, this application will be configurable because all these beans, okay, all this object creation now is getting handled by Spring container, and all these things are like, this Spring container is deciding all these things based on this configuration file. Okay, so right now if I will configure some other class, okay, like if I need work for civil engineer, okay, and if I go to our my main app, this one, okay, I have that same ID, but now it will give an object of civil engineer. So when I will print this work method, I will call this work method, it will internally call the work method of civil engineer. Okay, so nothing has been changed here in our application. Okay, if you have used this like alias, okay, this bean ID 1,000 times in your application, anywhere in your application, that will now refer to software, that will now refer to civil engineer. Okay, sorry, not software engineer, that was the first engineer who has got the work. Now we have the civil engineer, we are executing it, and okay, we got the work. So start working on next block. So likewise, let us go through the last one. Okay, so actually we already know that our application is working here. So electrical engineer, and now we will execute this application Now run it, and yeah, you got it. So design and implement electrical system. Okay, so yeah, our electrical engineer also got the work. So yeah, that was all for this IOC. Okay, so IOC is actually like creating and managing your object, and like for creating and managing it, actually take input as a configuration file, which actually give all those instructions, like which object or how it needs to create that object. Okay, so this is a kind of high level of Spring IOC. If you have any like doubts, any questions, you can put that in the comment, and and you will also get a Git link in the description, so you can go through this whole source code as well if you have any doubts. Okay, so thank you for watching the video. Have a good day ahead.